Welcome to Authenticity Unleashed. I'm your host, Pam Rader, and I'm here today with some very special guests, some dear friends of mine, Cindy Edgeson and Joe Greenland, also known as Foxdreamer. Joe and Cindy have been instrumental in shape form of my career and my life over the past couple of years. I wouldn't be the person that I am if not for meeting these two extraordinary individuals, and I'm so delighted to share them with all of you today. So I'd like to start by just letting each of you introduce yourselves and share a little bit about what it is that you do, because there's nothing I could say that would do it justice. Cindy, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I'm Cindy. Yeah, so I have a real deep curiosity for just the different parts about life that are maybe taboo subjects that people don't talk about, like the deeper part where you can't see with your physical eyes the answer right there. So I have a deep inquiry kind of mind, and with that mind, I put out there this one request of the universe about 14 years ago when I took a trip to Peru, that I needed to have purpose when I went to Peru. And I said, I want to grow more spiritually. And I didn't realize the impact that that desire that I had would bring into my life. And little did I realize it was going to bring Joe into my life. And he is a deeply spiritual man. And he has been teaching me in much the same way his grandfather taught him. So it's not always direct, like how we've learned in our education systems. It's so direct and pinpoint. I've grown so much deeper into that feeling nature of ourselves. So what I offer for people is to bring that understanding that we contain all of our answers when we can slow things down, because sometimes our brains just move too fast and our emotions take over. It's like how to bring it in, slow down, and start to be the observer of the situation. And through the techniques and experiences that I have had and things I've learned from Joe, I help people to bring that in and see that deeper part of themselves, that they got that answer for them, where to look, how to look.
So beautiful. And I can't wait to get into because your path did not start there. It was not looking like it was going to go that way if someone took a look at your life as a child growing up in the Mormon church. You probably never guessed that you would be doing what you're doing today.
Not at all. And then when I even think about how being raised in a structured, organized religion, how it shapes us. And
Mhm.
we think that that's normal, and that's just the way the world is. And I'm in my 40s, and I start deconstructing these ideas that I had about reality and life from being shaped in that, environment as a kid. And it's such a gift to be able to see past that really formed road that I have walked so many years thinking this is the direction of life. And it's like, it took a turn.
Yeah, that's so I love this this topic, because I think whether you were raised in organized religion or anywhere, in fact, we all are consumed by the beliefs that are given to us by the people around us. And until we have a desire to explore them, we're not really living our own lives. We're living a carbon copy or a version of someone else's life or someone else's wish for us. And both of you have found ways to walk into your most authentic self, which I think is so extraordinary. Joe, do you want to say a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Hi, I'm Joe Greenland. I was born in Aklavik, Northwest Territories. I was raised by my grandfather, John Greenland. And I grew up in a community of half Eskimo, Indian, and the white people were like teachers, doctors, nurses. Being a blue-eyed little native kid, I didn't fit in either sides of my relatives, so I was sort of outcast. And I was able to see things really even at an early age. I saw so much with people's lives, and spirits and things would come in and guide and show me. And other, like one time, one of my uncles died, and his spirit came out of his body and told me to tell people things and scared everybody. But my granddad understood me, and he was a medicine man, and he taught me a lot of things, like things he taught me, he told me never to share with people. So I had a hidden life, and kids didn't understand me. My mother didn't understand me. After he passed away, he told me to just keep reading, learning, and asking questions. And after I left the Arctic, I moved to Edmonton, Alberta, and I started getting into Cree Indian practices and sweat lodges and going to native healing circles and things. In the whole thing, I skipped a part of when I was 9 years old. I got taken from my granddad and put in residential school, which created real lots of trauma and dysfunctions with me. And the minister that ran the residential school abused the children. So after about 7 months in there, I did not like what was going on, so I ran away to live on the streets. I spent about 5 years on the streets learning, trying to figure out how to survive. Then my granddad picked me up when I was 13 and brought me back home. By then I was too streetwise. I didn't go to school. I didn't really listen. I had my own laws. I didn't have parents telling me, well, you got to do this or think this way. I went to sleep when I want, got up when I want, ate and did whatever I wanted. And I lived in this world. And my granddad tried to get me to go back in, and he's like, school, you need it. You need it. I'm like, no, no, no. And I just sort of went down my path. And while I was on the streets, the spirits really helped me a lot of times because I didn't have anywhere to stay. And in the Arctic, it can get down to 50, 60 below at night, and you're a little child walking around in the dark and you don't want to freeze. Inside, you listen to those little intuitions, your instincts, your civil whatever. And so when you get guided, you sort of go along and you see how it works out. And like I say, later on, I ended up moving from the north, Edmonton, Alberta, and I got into a lot of practices there. And I like telling a story, my first sweat lodge, because I went in there, and when I got to the sweat lodge, all these Cree Indians were all there, and they're all speaking in their language. And I'm looking at them, and they're pointing at me, and they're laughing, and going on and on and on in their language, and I'm asking them things, and nobody's answering me. And then we go in the sweat lodge, and we're in there, the door closes, they start really drumming and all this stuff, and the guy next to me starts yelling like a coyote, and somebody else is screaming like an eagle, and you're making this noise, and it's this dark little hot place, and I'm like, nobody's speaking English, and this guy's throwing hot water on the hot rocks, and it's just, and I'm freaking out in my mind because, you know, being in a small little closed-in space in the dark with men wasn't a good experience for me. So it really challenged me, and I'm like, I got my fist ready. Anybody touch me, I'm going to start swinging, you know, it's in my mind. And all of a sudden, poof, it was like this light turned on and all this stuff started going on. The voices told me, watch this, watch that. And I could hear the guys way in the background. I could hear the drums. I could hear the singing and screaming and everything going on. And I was in this other reality. And like whatever this is really, really cool. And the next thing I'm back in my body and the round's over and the guy's like, you can go out. And I went out and I hit the ground. It was so hot and I was laying on the ground. I was laying there. I'm like, holy, it just about killed me. And I thought it was over. And then the guy says, got to get back in. And I'm like, what? And they started laughing. So I went back in. I did 4 rounds. And each time I had these really, really powerful experiences. But in it all, Christianity came up. And it's like, natives devil worship, natives do evil things, native practices, all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, but when I was a child, I had all kinds of experiences with my grandfather. So that was a really mind bender for me. And I'm like, okay, I need to follow this path. So I started searching out different elders and all kinds of teachings. And then at the same time, I started learning astrology, numerology, I Ching and Buddhism and so many pieces. And for about 5-6 years, I just pushed myself through my fears. And I started seeing the good in everything. And I'm like, okay, there's something good everywhere. And I remember as a child when I ran away from residential school, I'm like, I'm going to find the answer. Why the Jews are loved by God? Why are Buddhists loved by God? Why are Buddhists all the other cultures, they said God is going to give them the world and they're special and this. And I'm like, but why are all the natives going to get burnt in hell? And my granddad said, always read, study, learn, ask questions. So I put really lots of my life into doing that. And now at this age, I'm going to be turning 60. I see all the good in everything. And I try to help people understand that through so many kinds of fears and challenges, I was able to survive. I was able to learn. And even as a little boy, I always wanted to help change the world. I always wanted to find a way to help people realize there's something way deeper. It's like sitting in the dark. If you sit in it long enough, you're going to see the light. If you understand or fasting or other kinds of things in ceremony, if you're doing it and your desire is strong enough, you're going to have a really profound experience. But it's going to be in here, not out here. It's going to sometimes seem like it's out here, but it's up here. I always say, this is a holographic machine. What are you putting in there? You know, what's forced?
Do you think, Joe, that our fears are basically a product of our conditioning? At least whatever we've been taught to fear, whatever we've been taught is scary for us. Is that where most fear comes from, do you think?
That's what I was going to start relating to is in residential school. I was constantly, every Sunday, we were told the devil's going to come and take us into hell and burn us. And it traumatized and scared us because we're natives. I mean, we don't have our parents there. We don't have our moms, dads. We don't have brothers or sisters. We're seated. And you hear all kinds of kids screaming and crying, and you're waiting for this devil to come, and it really, really does something to your mind. And then when you go home to be with your family, you hate them. Because why did they abandon you? Why did you let people do this to us? So you start wanting to destroy your family, and it creates a really twisted distortion up here. And fear is actually inside. Because if you were taught with love and taught with everything and the right guidance, you wouldn't incorporate fear up here. You would understand something different. You would see things in a bigger perspective, and you would slow things down. You'd be kinder and gentle to yourself, because part of it is we don't think we're deserving, or we're sinners, or we're ugly, or whatever, and it creates so many things. And you do it for so long in your life, one day you stop, and it's like living inside a big garbage dump, and it's all this stuff there, and it's cleaning all of that up, but it's going in here. And what I found a technique is, I can't remember the name of the book I read when I was around 26. And one day I was like really, really frustrated, and I asked the universe, well, how do I deal with this? Because stuff that happened to me as a child in residential school is coming up, and I want to run away. I don't want to face that. I've done this, and I'm tired of myself, because every time I run, I just repeat the same things, and I hate myself. And I just create more and more fears, because now I haven't found the answer.
I call those thought loops.
And so the universe told me to go and get this book. So I went out and I bought it, and reading it, it says, when you're afraid, allow yourself to sit there and look at your fear. And while you're in your fear, close your eyes, grab a big bat, and go inside yourself and look for that thing to beat it with this bat. So I'm like, this thing has tormented me beyond anything. Like when it came up, I just want to run or get stoned or get drunk or, get angry or whatever. It just brought so much out of me. So I'm like, okay, I'm trying this. In my mind, I get this big bat to close my eyes, and I start searching my body. Well, where is this fear? Where is this anger? Where is this memory? Because, man, I'm just going to give it such a beating that I'm not going to fear it anymore. After about 5 minutes of doing that, I came out and I felt different. And I'm like, how come I'm not scared? Something changed inside me. And then the next time that happened, I put myself through that again, and I kept doing it until when it came up, I didn't have that fear to run away or react that way anymore. So then I got more curious about psychology and lots of other techniques. And I'm like, we're not taught about our mind. And I think that is a missing piece. And I think when we're children, they know that about us. But so many things get implanted by the time we're adults, or, in our 30s or 40s, before we understand we need to stop and go here. And then look at that garbage dump. It's not as big as we think it is sometimes, but there's specific things in there that have a very powerful energy that can overpower you. I've seen people who, through a smell of a flower, went beyond violent. Like they became so aggressive and angry. And I'm like, whoa, that is really dangerous. And I've seen other things where people just transform, and it was like a caged animal and they're in survival, and anything that comes near them, they're going to hurt. And I'm like, whatever is up here, they need help to find that and realize they can remove that. So I spent a really long
Right.
time in my life searching this out, trying to understand how to help people.
I love this. As you were speaking, I was just thinking about this concept. But do you think that, but I'm always curious about what you have to say, both of you, when we're children, that we have some kind of divine assignment, that we're here to follow a specific, authentic path. And then the adults in our lives, the society around us can contain us, constrain us, and maybe knock us off of that path. Do you think that the purpose of life is to sort of find our way back to ourselves and what our own divine assignment was, if there is such a thing?
That's where in the Bible it says over and over and over, look through the eyes of an innocent child. You will read many verses where Joshua ben Joseph would say, look through the eyes of an innocent child. And that is the number one secret in the Bible they don't want you to recognize. You were an innocent child. You saw and knew everything. Because I remember stuff from when I was a little boy and I was shown and told, and throughout life they always came true. My granddad used to, when I used to have flashes of stuff, I'd tell him and he'd say, no, you remember this. And every now and then he would ask me about it and I'd share whatever was shown to me. And then later in life, here it is. Everything I was shown has manifested and created. And my granddad kept me open to look into the future, search for these things, believe in these things. And he wouldn't let anybody take that from me. And I wouldn't back down. I'd tell people things, they'd mock me or do anything, and I'd just carry on going forwards on my journey.
And I look at it like I've come to understand it as innocence. And our innocence gets taken from us through fears. And that little child now is afraid of losing mom, or, the parents aren't going to love them. So then they close down their door of like that open awareness to just take in all the information and just feel the environment, and without judgment, how a child can learn 4 different languages because they absorb it. They become part of the energy of it. And our fears and those projections from our environment close down that ability, and we start thinking our way through all of our problems instead of allowing ourselves to open and just be like an innocent child, not afraid that someone's going to come and steal it or hurt you.
I think we actually become so afraid of our emotions. I love what you just said, that we start thinking our way through, and because we're so afraid to have emotions, we're told that they're too big, or that's the wrong one, or you shouldn't have it, anxiety is bad, or whatever. But what I kind of just heard you saying in there is that when we can, and with Joe with the bat, like when we can feel, we can heal. We feel to heal. If we thought less and felt more, maybe our lives would go a little better for us.
I like that one.
Yeah, when you put fear and shame together, it's a very powerful ingredient. It's like when you put flour with different things, you can make pies, you can make bread, you can make cinnamon buns or pastries or whatever. With certain traumas and certain things, there's ways if a person understands to shut somebody's mind down. Like women, when they're little girls, if you hurt them certain ways, you block their mind, and they'll be afraid to go in there and look at their. And when they're very, very small, they're very intuitive because they will tell their parents. It's like, when I'm older, I'll have a husband and I'll have these kinds of children. And they'll just see it as clear as day. And like I say, things will happen that'll close that off. And when you have parents that are like vampires, or grandparents and other people around that suck your energy out of you because you want to give energy, and when you go around somebody, there's this universal love, this all-knowing, all-feeling, all-trust that comes out of you. And there are people that realize you have that and they want to pull it out of you. And my granddad never wanted that. If I gave that energy to him, he would return it. He would never try to take it out of me. And he tried to help me to understand that more. And he never shut down my feelings. He always tried to help me to stay in there, even when things were fearful. It was very important in what he was teaching me. And this is something me and Cindy discuss lots. Like I take her through topics. Like some days we talk all day on one subject, and I try to take her in and out of that to help her to look inside her mind and free herself from whatever is there.
And so you were taught by your grandfather, and now you're a teacher to many, but a teacher to Cindy and partnered with Cindy, and then you go out and you teach other people. What I hear you say, you're teaching other people how to kind of deal with this distortion of reality that we have, this distortion of, we've been told it's a certain way, and we buy into this story, this delusion of how life is and all the imaginary limitations and constraints. And what I see both of you doing is helping people get kind of free from that and being able to say, hey, I'm actually creator. I can create my life the way that I want. And if I am free from these fears and free from my conditioning, then this moment and this time and its potential, it's pure potential. And I can create whatever it is that I want. And I personally think that's the most beautiful gift that you can give people, is to remind them of who they are. And that's what the two of you do so beautifully. I know anyone who comes in contact with you says, we just want to be around them more, because everyone wants to be reminded of their own power and not live in that constrained world. So I have a question for you, because I heard this the other day. It was on Instagram, I think. I have no idea who the girl was who said it, but I thought of you when she said it. Someone asked her a question about fear and how we avoid our feelings. And she said, well, imagine that you were just this ball of light, this pure, beautiful energy in the universe. And Creator comes to you and says, how would you like to go to Earth for this blip, a millisecond, a blink of an eye? And in that blink of an eye, you're going to experience joy and pain and sorrow and ecstasy and grief. And you're going to come to really know every experience of what it is to be a human being. And it'll be over like that, but you will evolve and you will know yourself. And of course, we would say, yes, please. And then we get here and we're like, except for that feeling, and I don't want that one. And it's definitely not that. Is that, I mean, Joe, with everything you've seen and heard and connected with is it do we choose to come here and have those experiences?
That is my understanding, because like I say, the veil's never really closed off to a lot of things for me, and there's so many experiences that I can visit so easily, and there's places I've gone that are beyond any kinds of human words you can express. And at times I want to share these universal kinds of things, but I have no exact way of ever put it into words or meanings, and they expand so much bigger than what we try to express in humanness is very, very limited. And the thing is, I think, is the more you clear out, like I always tell Cindy, you have to believe. If you don't believe, then the universe can't create it for you. So we sort of like drive a car, but we got our foot on the brakes. Sometimes in the past, I used to get afraid because they would show me things I'd have to experience, sometimes up to a year, 2 years. And I'd see and know all these people and things. And I'm like, do I really have to do that? They're like, well, we're asking you, you have to decide. And I'm like, well, can you come back later? Like, give me a little time to think about it. And I'd do this 4 or 5 times, and I'd see everything. And after about 4th or 5th time, they would come to me, and I'm like, okay, if it's going to help the world, I'm going to go through all of this. And no matter what it was and how scary it is, I would ask them to try to move me through it as fast as I can, because human, like I say, when you see something negative coming, you want to go around it, over it, under it, or avoid it.
Yeah.
And me knowing 2 years of all kinds of really insane stuff, I'm like, okay, I've agreed, now it's started. help me get through this really
Mhm.
fast. Because I wouldn't know if it's 2 years, 6 months, or a month or anything. All I know is these things are, once this one happens, this one's going to happen, that one. And I would just watch it all play out until the final one. At that point, everything would end and they'd give me a gift, which would alter and change me. Like literally, I'd have these abilities and all kinds of things go on. And that would maybe go on for a few months and it would disappear. And I'm like, oh, I must have did something bad. I must have been evil. I must have sinned or something. And the voice would, no, 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 we put it away until the time you need it. And I'm like, but I thought I did something wrong. So the way the universe sees things is not the way we perceive it in this world. It's like the way we perceive pain or fear or violence or, positive or negative is after a while, even when I'm doing like, I like calling it clearing because we're going to remove something here that's who you identify in this moment. So if I focus on you and I'm like, okay, and I'm talking to you and eventually I clear this new energy comes in, you accept it, it shifts you, that old part of you is gone, that fear and other things that's been preventing you. Now it's expanded you and you got this new amazing energy flowing in. And it opens all your chakras, it allows more of your future in, but it ends a lot of past. Sometimes people disappear, things that were looping that you constantly would draw in because you thought you deserved that is not there anymore. And you start attracting all kinds of new things. And this is where it gets a lot bigger than I like what she said because I do understand that, but there's still bits and pieces of it we can't explain.
From my
Hmm.
understanding, there is though, like you have to believe in something more there, whereas in like for you, Joe, it was you knew, like you had more of a knowing and a lot more clarity. But for someone like myself, I have to believe that there's something more because of these old ideas of myself that I still haven't let go of are creating these obstacles from me actually knowing that this direction is the right direction for me to go in. So I do need, but I need also experiences of knowing I'm on the right track also.
I've already told you
Mm,
when you were around 5 years old, you were shown your whole life and you agreed upon it.
yeah.
And that's where we separate from that
Oh,
hierarchy. Every human being does that. Is like at some point in your childhood, you get to look at your whole life.
mm,
Do you want to live it? Do you want to go through these tragedies? Do you really want to get in a really violent danger relationship or, whatever it is? Like when I got hit with a dump truck 22 years ago, the voice says, we're going to hurt you, but we're not going to kill you. I thought, okay, break my hand, break my arm, break my leg, whatever. Yeah, hurt me. Well, I got hit with a dump truck and broke every bone and changed my life. Like it just about killed me. And the voice said, see, we hurt you, but we didn't kill you. And I'm like, why didn't you just throw me down the stairs? Like, why couldn't you just break my arm? And he says, one day when it's all over, you will understand this. So I'm still waiting for that answer. I didn't cause the accident. The guy who hit me with a dump truck was in the wrong. And I thought I was going to end up, winning the case and doing really well. I thought maybe I could build a healing center. I could do lots of good. That didn't turn out. Well, the voice told me it's still not over yet. And I'm like, okay, I don't understand this, but they know up there. And it's been over 22 years. And because of everything that happened, it brought Cindy into my life. Eventually, it brought you into my life and many other different people.
mhm.
So without all of these different things, I would have never met Cindy.
Mhm.
I would have never met you. I would have probably never even came into BC and other kinds of things. I would have went in a whole different direction. Sometimes there's things that are catalysts and things are shut down and somewhere we do have the answers, but until it's over, there's like a thin veil here. And I think inside you, you have some of those experiences because I know you have deja vu and heightened awarenesses of things that are going to go on ahead of time. Same with Cindy. You guys glimpse things every night.
Yeah, and I'm knowing you makes me less scared of those things because what I'm learning is that I love that the fact that you know is like enough for me to, it's like I'm hot spotting my phone to my computer. I hot spot to Joe's belief. He knows, he's seen it. So therefore it's easier for me to like fully believe. And that is a catalyst to me being able to go more deep into the things that I want to study, and hopefully my most authentic self to do the things I came here to do, because I think the obstacles are the way. I think it was the path that we chose. What do you think, Cindy? Do you think the obstacles that you're facing are specific, are like they're on your path for something?
More and more I see it like that. I last year I had a real dev experience and I felt very low. And for quite a while, I was the victim of my life for sure. And inside, I'm like, I know things. I know how to get out of this, but it seemed like everything had shut off in my brain for that period of time. And then as I came out of that, through those few months, I was gaining so much experience in a darkness. And, I come out of it more and more and more. And I see these blessings that come from those awarenesses that I had when I had that friction in my life. And so it's like the more often that I can see that, that angst you feel, that tension all over your body. Like, I don't want to be here in this room. What is that? It's teaching me something. Mm-hmm. And how can I go in that and understand, what are you showing me? Then they become these gifts instead of something like, I have to run away. I'm never going to go over to that house or into the mall ever again, So these fears, these hardships, these obstacles, they are showing us and teaching us more about ourselves, that those layers start peeling off more and more. For me, they are.
Triggers show us where we're not healed. And isn't that a gift if the universe is pointing us to, here's a place where you can heal, or here's a place where you can remember? Joe, do you think healing and remembering who we are kind of the same thing? Because I know every time I remember that I'm a divine being, there's something part of me that heals, I think.
Yeah, because you allow yourself to bring in more or open bigger, and there's something you hide from yourself, and if you're willing to sit there, it's going to expand. And that's what I loved about my granddad, is he taught me it's okay to see my own future and my own path. He taught me it was okay to see other people and assist them in different ways. Like when I told you about your son, you would go to Vancouver and all of this, and I'm like, yeah, I know exactly what's going to go on. And you're like, nope. Next thing you call me up, and I go and I meet your son, and I do everything. And he's like, yeah, this guy here. And I'm like, whatever, say what you want, just watch. And for me, that is one of the most beautiful things, when the universe helps me to see things on another person's life, and I share that with them, and then they unknowingly manifest and bring this into reality. It's sitting there, it's in front of them, they just don't know. And then something goes on, this comes, the next thing comes, the next thing, and I'm like, wow, I was given permission to see these things in this person's life, and I honored that. And that's what I love about spirituality. It's not a power. This is where I believe you're going to allow yourself to open up and see and do these things. And I know Cindy has it inside her to do the same thing. And for me, when the universe creates that and blesses another human being, it's something very beautiful inside. And I allow myself to feel and hold that for another person. Because sometimes I sit with people that are on their last breath, they got no more desires or will for any reasoning. And I'm like, but I don't see that. I'm telling you, this is what I'm seeing, and the universe is asking me to hold this belief for you. And this is very special. This is something you can't even see, but I know this is going to be, and God is going to manifest and create all of these things. And I get to be that witness. I get to feel, I get to see something very beautiful come into the world and transform it. And I think that's a divine part that's hiding in all of us. When we're children, we could do it, but then we close that off to run through our human confusion, to find out that we got to go back to that innocence and bring it back up in us.
So I want to just quick share because people listening to this probably don't know that story, but my son was on the street using fentanyl and I thought he was in treatment actually, but Joe and Cindy were at my home and we were having tea and Joe said when I told him I was going to Vancouver that you will be bringing your son home. And I said, not a fucking chance. That is chaos in my life. I am not bringing that kid home with me. And Joe said, we'll see about that. And then he said, they keep showing me that you're bringing him home. And by they, it's the spirit world that he communes with. And everything that Joe had shared with me up to that point had been truthful. And I trusted his wisdom implicitly. And so it turned out that he had been kicked out of treatment and nowhere to go and was in psychosis and in a really bad way. And I had to bring him home for him to survive long enough to get to treatment. And that was a turning point. It was a catalyst moment to him not only surviving, but thriving. And it wasn't a straight line. He didn't go right to treatment and get better all of a sudden, but it was the starting point. But one thing that you said in this last little bit, you said, they asked me to hold the belief. The universe has asked me to hold the belief for you. Now, here's what I think was the catalyzing moment. I think my son had lost all belief in himself. And we as a family had accepted the fact that he was probably going to die and were scared to even believe that he could get better because it was so crushing. But the moment you said, I see a future for you, I see these things happening and you're going to help people, we could all hold a belief that there was something better. And I think that's the thing that transformed everything because I could see my son have a future. He could see himself have a future. Now, my question is, most of us, we tend to think, we think bad things about people, or we say, that guy's just the way he is. I think our thoughts are powerful. And that if we can hold the highest intention or belief for people, that we can actually help cause that. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, and this is where people who are negative that practice like sorcery, black magic, and other kinds of things, they know through their mind power, they can take somebody that's doing really well and actually hold an energy in such a way that they can end up in a place where their lives have flipped right upside down. And this is where the universe brings me in. Something has happened to a person somewhere in their life. And by me coming in, I open up this energy and they get to agree. I can't make that decision for them. And the creator's offering this. And all I can do is bring it through and say, this is what I'm seeing, because I don't know if they're going to desire and want that. All I know is this is what I see when it happens. Like when you phone me and says, my son said this, and I'm like, whoa, and that's what I had shared with him. And you had revealed that he had called you up and said these things had gone on. And I'm like, wow, that's the creator. That's not me, but it's something I believe in. And whatever it is, he's bringing it through. And I hold that goodness that transforms, clears things, helps a person to step in to something that was waiting there for them all the time. They just had other things pulling and interfering or blocking them. Maybe drug dealers, or somebody maybe had a girlfriend who wished just nothing but devastation. And he got stuck in that stream, and I had to come along through you. This had to all play out. Then it just helped him to slowly lift and step to where he is today.
Now, Cindy, you've witnessed probably thousands of people.
Yeah.
And I bet you've seen many of these kind of miracles type moments. And though you kind of help to interpret, because sometimes when Joe says stuff, I'm like, I'm not smart enough to get that. And so you will say, what he's saying is, so I have a two-part question. One, do you feel like you're getting more and more in tune with what he's saying and able to deliver it in ways that make it actionable for people? And then number two, are you still in awe of some of the things that come out of his mouth?
Yes. And yes. So, yeah, I did not realize how much I understood. It became so normal to me just to hear Joe. And I heard him teaching people and clearing them over and over again. And it was not always the same thing, but I had heard it so much that I just became like, breathing to me. And then I could see the confusion in people's face where I was able to just like, well, this is what he's saying. I learned how to sort of, I could see from both perspectives. Like I knew what Joe was teaching, but I could feel it from the person who's like, I don't understand. And I was able to bring it in through a different language to redirect their thoughts. Okay, now I know which direction Joe's going with on this one. So yeah, I've learned to navigate those teachings. Like I said earlier too, like how Joe learned from his grandfather was a lot of storytelling and, and experiences too. And didn't realize that Joe was also teaching me through storytelling. And I wanted more direct.
And the second part of the question was just, are you still in awe of sometimes some of the things that Joe sees and shares and the outcomes of those things?
That because he's shared things for me for my future. And he's like, I see this. And I just didn't believe him for the longest time because I had these, and I still do have them. I'm working through that disentanglement of what I thought was my voice talking. And that's where you become the master of your mind and the thoughts that you're thinking. They were there for so long. I believed that that was normal. And I realized that that was a different voice inside myself, like a limiting belief I had about myself. And it was on autopilot. And so when I started to recognize it and catch it and changed it, it changed rapidly. And then I could see Joe when he said, Cindy, you're going to be doing this. But now I can see the vision that he saw of me. I couldn't see it before. So that whole being aware of your thoughts and your feelings, and you don't have to what you're hearing, you can question it. And so I am, because I see it all, it happened in my life. And I'm like, Joe, you said that was going to happen. He's like, yeah, I know. But I don't need to say that to him. But for me, it is like a miracle. Once again, it's like, it keeps just showing itself. And that's another thing I learned from Joe too. It's like, if what I'm seeing is true, then get the universe to prove it. Because part of my conditioning, I wanted to defend myself all the time, that what I knew to be true. And so I felt like I had to prove it to people by teaching them the step by step. This is how you do it. This is how you see it. And it would never work out like I thought it would. And so he would say, he's like, Cindy, you can't prove anything. Let the universe prove it. People will try to make you prove it, but that's only what's inside of them that they can't believe for themselves. That surrendering and allowance to come in and do the work.
For me, my need to prove things in my life had come from like me just clinging to this identity, and I needed to be right because if I wasn't right, I didn't know who I was. And I think that that's really where most of our sort of, because needing to prove is sort of a form of defensiveness, right? I'm defending my rightness over here because I'm scared of what it means if I'm wrong. And I think that prevents us from really exploring seeking the truth and learning and expanding and growing. It's not that we have to throw everything out the window. There's probably beauty and truth in all little tidbits of the things we've learned along the way, but we have to learn, I think discernment is the big word, is like what feels like truth to me right now, and then continue to question. Continue to question. So what would you say? So many people say to me, I don't have a purpose. I feel like I'm lacking purpose, Pam. And I just say the purpose of your life is to become the best version of yourself and share that with the world. And there are many paths that lead to that destination. And I don't know what your definition of purpose is, but what would you say to people that are lost and saying they don't have a purpose?
We both look at each other.
Well, I know what I always express mine. But for Cindy, it's like, this is something I talked to her about, is like, what is it you are gonna step into your light and share with the world? Because there's something inside you were born with, but your mind wants to go here and go there and avoid it. Even when it's right here sitting on your nose, you're going to blow it off and then run over here and there. And for me, it's like, ever since I was a little boy, I've always wanted to help the world. I've always wanted to find a way to take what I've been shown from the universe to make people feel safe and know they're going to survive, know they're going to live, know they're going to conquer their fears, know they're going to get to the next destination or find whatever it is. For me, that's healing and teaching, guiding, supporting, whatever it is, I will become that. Part of I think the challenge in with each human being is how far do you go over here in masculinity? How far do you go over here in femininity? Because there is a fine balance in all of that. And when I do a lot of things, when I grew up in my community, everybody called me gay, queer, this and that, because I was always in that healing energy. And it's like a mother always wanted to prevent somebody from being hurt or bad things. I would say, don't go over here because you're going to break your arm. Person wouldn't listen. They go over, slip, break. You and the devil did that. I'm like, no. I was trying to help you. And I would go to houses and people, and I would try to prevent bad experiences or try to help them to see they could have all these good things. So I was going around constantly doing this, and people didn't understand me. And because this universal feminine energy comes through me, like when I meditate or I channel or do clearings or do anything, there's this energy. Like even when I pray, people are like, whoa, it was like I was hypnotized. I'm like, that's God's energy. That is not mine. I'm just a person. And whatever is flowing through me, I believe God has all the answers and the love and guidance and whatever for you. And I'm only going to do what I need for you in this moment. So with Cindy, I'm like, okay, what do you want to be and what are you going to do?
And I like the work of creating those experiences of God, or that awe feeling, that connection feeling in some form every day. And that's purpose, because the more that I can flex that on a daily basis, it gives today purpose. And then it gives tomorrow purpose, and the purpose grows and you grow with it. And then you be that light for the world, for the future. But if I sit here today and I never leave my house, but I'm like, well, I'm going to be on the stage and teaching all these people, but I'm too afraid to leave this, the energy's not building in that sphere or in that space, allowing that to flow through you this in a day, finding it somewhere to be in awe.
That's so interesting that you say that, like the practices, and just keep it's like you get attraction for it. And I think like love is an action, and I think purpose is an action. Too many people sit at home and try to think about what their purpose is. That's what I think. And I have found that to be true. I started teaching yoga, as you know, many years ago, and then that kind of just naturally expanded into which then expanded into training some people, which then expanded into writing a book, and then now doing podcasts, which a lot people say, well, you do a lot of different things. And I say, no, I just do one thing. It's all the same thing. I'm just expanding into different ways of sharing the one thing that I do, which is helping people get some ideas about how they can free themselves and be less constrained and live a more authentic, fulfilled life for them. Yeah. If there's one piece of advice that you would give to people who do want to live in their most authentic energy, true to themselves, and like free from the constraints of their upbringing, what advice would you give to people?
I would question my ideas in the way is this my idea, or is this someone else's idea of me? Am I being my own idea, or am I being somebody else's idea of me? And that will bring in more of your own personal truth and your more of your own in a daily occurrence.
I love that, because people think their identity's fixed and they just keep like dragging it around like a backpack with them everywhere they go and putting it on every time they go out the door. But they can set it down and say, does that belong to me? And they could pick something else up. I love that. Joe, what would you say?
I think be true to yourself. We try to be many, many different things, and I think we get confused by wanting to make a person happy. So we try to create an identity, And then we create our life around that identity instead of going, well, through all of my life experiences and through my challenges and everything, this is who I am inside. This is what I want to put out and offer. Like when me and Cindy came together, she didn't know me. I was already 20 years sober. I mean, she was going through a stage of her life. She was still married at the time. And, you know, the universe told me just allow her to be your friend. Like, tell her this, tell her that. And they just tell me. So I knew she was going to show up. And they already, it's like, yeah, you need to do this, you need to do that. So she'd show up and I just tell her, well, this is who I am. This is this, this is that, whatever. And just being as open as possible, because one day, if you know I'm being dishonest, then something comes up and it's like, well, you lied to me or you were hiding this. And it's like, we all got closets of things, and there's somebody there that's going to love you and they're going to support you and they're going to allow you to really bring your true light to the surface and show yourself to the world. And this is what I try to do for Cindy, and I
Yeah.
try to do for so many other people. But I got to be authentic too, because I grew up in so much confusion and violence and so many other kinds of things. And to heal all of that, I had to really, really go inside myself. It's like, I don't want to hurt people the way I was hurt. I don't want to deceive people the way that I was deceived. I don't want to be wronged the way I was wronged or whatever. And I'm like, so I need to go in here and I need to look at me, because whatever is up here is what I'm going to manifest and create. She has no idea who I am. She has a past, so I got to support her. I already know she was a woman. I already know she's had a life before she's met me. So how can I put my best on the table? Can she put her best on the table? Because when you're married, you don't want to carry that old marriage into a new relationship, because then you just create that same thing. All of a sudden, all these things are coming up, and it's like, this doesn't belong here.
It's the practice of truth
I
telling.
had really lots of terrible relationships, and I'm like, I'm not bringing that, because I've been hurt really bad. I was in a relationship where one native girl I was with raped me, and she put a knife to my throat and everything. I didn't want to trust a woman ever again. I'm like, I didn't understand why she did that, but she was on pills and drugs and everything. And I'm like, I didn't know how to trust after that. And I'm like, do I want to ever let women in my life? And like I say, there's other kinds of experiences where I got hurt in all kinds of ways, and I got shamed and things. And I'm like, but I can't make her that image. I got to go, well, that is part of here, but I can heal and remove it and now put myself on the table, allow her to put that there. And then both of us bring our true identical selves to that point, because working with me as a healer, I bring up stuff that triggers things within her, and I still got to hold space and support her, because it may bring something out that we need to work on and heal and other kinds of things. And it may bring up angers and other kinds of stuff. And I'm like, she's in my energy when I'm doing this, so I need to be conscious and aware of that stuff too. Plus, I share my life, and sometimes I'm not sure how she's going to react by the things I say and do.
Well, this kind of ties it in with what you started with. And I think like all of our experiences can cause us to try to manage people's perceptions of us. And then we try to protect ourselves and our identity and prevent future harm. So protect, preserve, and prevent is kind of our operating system a lot of the time. When you say go inside, it's like confront those fears. And then to me, the essence of what you're saying is it's like, what does it look like to come from truth? What does it look like to come from love? What is my best self right now? And it's not fear, it's not reaction, it's not the old me. And so just that beautiful inquiry of what does it look like to bring my best, to be my best, to do my best, to speak and seek the truth right now. That's what I heard you say.
I think that's
Something like that.
basically finding your innocent child. If you're innocent child, like when you're a child, you're very truthful. Like you don't hide anything. And I think when you identify with that, you realize you can't be hurt. Because when I first sat in a healing circle with Native and I started bringing up things from my past, there was so much shame and fear. And this story just started coming out of me, and the universe made all of this happen. And After about 15 minutes, I was sitting there and I was shocked, and I was like, I was never going to reveal that to anybody. I was going to take it all to the grave with me, you know? And I'm like, how did that elder do that? And I'm like, no, it wasn't the elder, it was the universe. And all of this had to play out. And then I'm like, I shared that. I let everybody know it so they can't hurt me anymore because I put that out there for them to know that they weren't there to experience that with me. Like I always say, people were never there holding my hand 24 hours every second of the day, experiencing what I had experienced. I can bring out that story and share that part of myself that might be scarred or dysfunctional or afraid or ashamed or whatever, but that's just a story I'm sharing. And it can't ever really come back in a way to hurt me unless I give it permission.
Yeah, sharing. I think I'm a big fan of sharing our stories as access to healing. But most of the damage, I think, comes from the shame. And when we're in shame, we hide. And when we hide, we feel we have self-loathing. So when we can share our stories in safe spaces where people are willing to hear them, then we start to heal a little bit and we give other people space to heal. I want to tell people what you do specifically a little
All
more.
right.
Joe and Cindy, they travel all around BC and Alberta and sometimes other places doing energy clearings. Now, Joe does energy clearings where he uses smudge and sometimes essential oils, depending on the environment that he's in, and will clear away old, stale energy, things that are no longer of service, as he described. And he is channeling. He's sharing messages from the universe, and Cindy is helping the person to take those the wisdom that Joe is sharing and the opportunities, and to put them into an actionable kind of steps that they could take to utilize those right away in their lives. And I want to say that this is so profound, so life-changing. I tell all my clients that they should have a session with Foxdreamer. And so if you're listening to this and this intrigues you at all, go to foxdreamer.com and book a session because it's life changing. And I believe, and I'm putting you on the spot here, if you can get enough people together for like a whole day, they sometimes will come to you and do like lots of clearings in one day, which is pretty special too. So retreats, Joe and Cindy have been guests at retreats and put on their own retreats. There are so many ways that you can work with them and learn from them. And however that looks for you, I highly recommend it. So thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing always your wisdom, and you're so generous, and it feels good always to just be in your presence. And I really appreciate you taking the time to be here with me today. So thanks for being here, guys.
No, thank you very much. I appreciate you.